want this. We really wanted this to be an informational conversation for all of us, so that what we get out of this meeting we'll be able to share with our family and friends, our neighbors, because this is a really crucial election, and it is important that we are armed with information going into the next few weeks. All right, Sarah, Anitra, are you ready to go over housekeeping? Or
Yes, I am. Good evening, Saras and guests. We are very excited that you're here. We do want to go over some virtual housekeeping rules for you so that you are familiar with this process. Many of us use this process regularly, so we're fairly familiar, but because we have guests here, I did want to go over these virtual housekeeping rules. First of all, please understand that mics will remain muted until you are recognized to speak. If you would like to speak and ask a question, please raise your hand and the technology committee will unmute your mic, and then you will also need to unmute your mic once they do so. Please use the chat box also if you would like to ask a question. Chats will be monitored by the Social Action Committee and the Technology Committee. In order to understand how to unmute your mic, you'll need to understand certain icons. Please select the participant icon so that you can see, first of all, how many people are in attendance, but also so that you can raise and lower your hand, which is within the participant icon. You also need to know how to mute and unmute your mic. If there's a slash line through your mic, that means it is muted and you need to click it to unmute it. And if it's a regular with no slash line, then you need to, that is unmuted, and you will need to click it in order to mute it. Please use the chat box to send any messages. If you look here on the iPad, it shows click the more button on iPad and the chat button on the personal computer. Thank you so much.
are there any questions about any of the housekeeping rules? Especially those guests who we have joining us tonight. If you have any questions, one of the things that Sarah Nietzsche did point out, and I just want to reiterate, that you have two options for submitting your questions. You can either raise your hand and ask your question yourselves of the clerk, or you can type in your question into the chat box, and then one of us will ask that question for you. We do want to make sure that you have an opportunity to get your questions asked. So right now, I would encourage you, if you have paper and pen with you, that you start jotting down some of your questions or topics that you'd like him to go over. He will be joining us, in this conversation as sort of an informational, informal conversation. So he is available or will be available for us to ask any questions that we have. And while you are here, I do want to apologize for those of you who were in the meeting Saturday. I was informed that my audio was not very good, and so it compromised my report, and I do want to apologize for that. And if any of you who were there and have questions, please either give me a call or send me an email so that I can clarify anything that I left murky or, misunderstood. Okay, so at this time, are there any questions? The clerk will be joining us in about 5 minutes or so. Are there any questions that I or anyone else in the Social Action Committee can address for you as we move into this conversational period?
Yes. Yes.
I have one question.
Hey, Fred.
This is Freddie Wright.
Uh-huh.
Okay, is it the precinct, each precinct have the buses? I wonder if they could use those buses to transport people to the voting places.
Okay. That's a great question. And I have been informed that Metro will be running to take people to and from those polling locations. I'm not sure exactly which dates, if they are limited to certain dates, but I have been informed that there will be free passage to and from.
Carla, please unmute your mic. Sorry
Thank
about that.
you.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
When the clerk comes on, we can definitely ask him if he has additional information about that and what would it entail, whether or not you need to show like your registration card or what in order to achieve that. So we will find that out, but I have heard that. I've also heard, and I know this is not the question that you asked, but I also have been informed, and you probably have heard too, that there are going to be some 24-hour polling locations. And so that's also a really good thing considering the climate that we're in. And so, you know, especially for the night owls who don't mind saying, well, I'm just going to go vote at 2 a.m. when I know there's not going to be anybody there in line. And so we can ask him about that, if there are specific locations for that, or if, you know, there's any information he can share with that. I do see a couple of questions in the chat that I will definitely take note of, and we will ask the clerk when he is on. Okay. And I do have a question about early voting polls and whether or not they'll be opened on Saturdays and Sundays. I do know that the early voting
Starting now.
I do know that the early voting locations will be open on the 17th and the 24th, which are those 2 Saturdays in the voting, the early voting period. In the past, on Sundays, the early voting locations had reduced hours, and so we will definitely ask him about that. I'm jotting it down in my notes now to see if we have those, if those hours will be abbreviated on those 2 Sundays that we have. Okay, and so I think we've covered that. While the mics are still open, is there anyone else who has a question that we can perhaps address before the clerk comes on?
Please raise your hand to be recognized. The technology hand
Thank you.
inside the
And
chat.
Charlene George has her hand raised.
Please unmute your mic.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. I received a mail-in ballot, but I was wondering if I could change my mind and vote in person.
Okay, I do know the answer to that, and you can do that. The only thing they ask is that if after having received a mail-in ballot and you change your mind, that you take it unopened to the polling location, and you will have to hand it in, and then they will allow you to vote at the machine.
So I've already opened it, so I don't qualify.
Well, what you still can do is you can still fill it out and sign it, but you can hand deliver it if that is a better option.
Okay, thank you.
And then if that doesn't answer it, when the clerk comes on, you ask him. Okay, we can ask him again.
I'm in Brazoria County.
Are you?
I don't know if
Still,
that
it's a
makes a
question
difference.
that's a fair question. And so it's a question that someone in Harris County may have. So it's okay if you ask that question.
Okay.
All right, thank you. I see other hands raised.
I'm not sure of the name. It's 1889 $. Please unmute your mic.
Sarah Deborah.
Do you see another hand up?
Now I see it.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah, I just want to follow up to Freddie's question regarding the precinct bus.
Mhm.
How additionally, how do we get the word out to the people in the community that that service is available if it indeed it is?
Okay. So make sure you hold on that, write that, note it down, so that when Clerk comes on, we can definitely ask him that question.
Okay, or she can tag it on to her question.
Yes, okay, great.
Okay.
We have more hands raised.
Yes, Pam Gaskin, please unmute your mic.
Thank you. This is in response to the lady who asked about the ballot, the mail-in ballot. It cannot be voted. It can be opened, just not voted.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Okay.
Another hand is raised.
I don't hear
Hear
you.
you.
I can't hear you.
Dr. Cushenberry, we can't hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, it was the one who was talking. Galaxy Tab A, can you please?
Yeah.
You're already
Can you hear
unmuted.
me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'm still trying to send this out. Do I take it apart or send all of it back?
What do you mean take it apart?
Yeah, it's two
It's
parts.
perforated.
Yeah, but I just wanted to make sure. Do I separate it and send one part back? That's
Not
what I'm
unless it tells you to do that. If it doesn't say that, don't do it. Don't do it. Send the whole thing back.
Oh, okay. Send
Okay.
all of it. All right. All right,
Okay.
gotcha.
Thank you. Next
Thank
hand.
you.
You're welcome.
Sarah Linda Calloway, please unmute your mic.
Good evening, Sarah. Sarah Carla, I
evening.
want us to also investigate the rails. Would they be available for people to use to go to voting vote?
All right, we will definitely ask the clerk that. I do know that Metro will be offering free passage to and from the polling locations, and we'll find out if that also includes the Metro rail. Mhm. Are there any other hands raised? Dr. Kitchen?
There are no more hands raised.
Okay. All right. Okay, so clerk should be joining us, and I want to remind everyone that we have invited our family and friends to join us in this. So please be aware, you know, that this is a public forum. And for those who are in the public who are joining us, I just want to point out that many of the members here are members of the Houston Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. And I want you to know that we are a 501c7 organization. We are a nonpartisan organization. We do not endorse candidates. Tonight's conversation with the clerk is merely an opportunity for us to have our questions answered so that we are informed and knowledgeable when it comes to casting our ballots in the upcoming election. And so this is an informative conversation that we are offering, because we know that being informed makes us more prepared when we go to cast our ballots.
Sarah Fleming, there are some hands raised.
Yes, ma'am.
Sarah Patricia Washington, please unmute your mic.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Yes.
My question is, there's been so much discussion about voter fraud and the mail-in ballots.
Mhm.
Is it permissible for those seniors who really are immobile or whatever to pick up 2 or 3 ballots from them that they've signed, sealed, and everything, pick those up and then deliver them to NRG? Or would that be?
That is not acceptable. It is not acceptable because when those ballots are submitted at NRG, that person whose ballot that is has to hand deliver it and sign that they are submitting their ballot. So that would be considered ballot harvesting, and it is not condoned, it is unwise, and it is against the rules. So please
Thank
do
you.
not do that. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. All
If
right.
that person cannot hand deliver it, then the best option for that person is to mail it in.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Other
Sarah
hands?
Joan Garrett, please unmute your mic.
Let me see.
You're open. I think she might be having a little difficulty, but I thought I heard her speaking.
It's open now?
Mhm.
Okay. I had a question. I was gonna call you, Carla,
Yes,
to
ma'am.
ask you. I received in the mail the green envelope, and it has my voter. It says official ballot. I'm in Fort Bend County, but driving around, I see signs of people, candidates, but they're not on the ballot, like the city council and the sheriff. And is this an official ballot that I have?
I cannot tell you that without looking at it, but I do know that your ballot is generated based on whatever precinct you're in. So what I would ask that you do, you can go to vote411.org, which is the League of Women Voters site, where they allow you to put in your address and they will show you every person who's on your ballot. And so that would be my suggestion to ensure that it is the official ballot, other than calling the clerk there to find out.
Okay, and I don't remember when I registered for mail-in ballot,
Mm-hmm.
and in May, in the last primary, I guess it was the primary voting,
Yes.
it came back because I was disqualified because I didn't select Republican or Democrat.
Oh, okay.
But I don't remember resending it. I don't remember sending it back because I was gonna wait and send it, after the voting.
Right.
But
Okay.
maybe I did send it. That's why they sent me this official ballot. So is there a way I can call and find out if they did receive the ballot?
In Harris County, I know that we have a tracking system where you can track the application and the ballot that you received and all of that. You'll probably have to call your county clerk to see exactly what they have. I would encourage you, however, to still go to the one website that I shared with you all, and I'll see if I can get it back up, was the one for the Secretary of State. And the Secretary of State covers the elections for the whole state. And so when you put in your address, your information with the Secretary of State, then it'll show you, that you are registered and where you're registered and all of that information that you'll need. But I do encourage you to contact your county clerk. Call them. They should have an election division that has people standing by to answer any questions that you have.
Okay, because it has on the envelope elections administrator, Fort Bend County.
Call them.
Is this valid?
Call them. I
Okay,
think it is, but I will
I
call.
will. Thank
I will
you.
call. Information is power.
Okay,
Any
thank you.
more hands raised?
There are no more hands raised.
Okay, the clerk should be joining us shortly.
Sorry, Carla, you're getting several chat questions, and we're forwarding them to you from the different people in technology that are monitoring the chat boxes. So please make sure you're watching that as well. So
Okay,
you
and
won't
I see
overlook
that
any.
the clerk has entered the waiting room. And so I will go, I have been looking at some of those, but while I was talking, I'm sorry I got behind. But many of those that I saw coming in were questions that I will have for the clerk. If I don't get to your question and you put it in the chat, then, hold on. I am going to go back through them. They're not lost. I'll be able to go back and pull them up. Thank you. And so when technology brings the clerk in, I will do a brief introduction to him and then allow him to speak. So we're going to allow him a little bit of time to share what he has to share first, and then we will move into our questions. Good evening, Clerk Hollins. Okay, your audio is still not on. And so while you are getting that, I'm going to go ahead and do my formal introduction. First of all, we want to welcome you. We have many people in our Zoom tonight who are excitedly waiting to hear what you have to say and also to ask their questions for you concerning this election period. Okay, he is asking that we unmute his mic. So technology, will you please unmute?
Yes, can you raise your hand so that I can see you? Raise your hand,
Clerk
please.
Hollins, in order to do that, will you please click on the participant tab and raise your hand?
I believe that I was unmuted now.
Okay, thank you. We hear you. Awesome.
Good evening, good evening.
Okay, so let me do my little brief introduction, Clerk Hollins. I hope you don't mind that I have put this together. And then after that, we will allow you an opportunity to give whatever opening comments or information that you'd like to share. When I spoke with your assistant, I did let her know that we would appreciate you, sharing whatever it is you'd like to first. And then after that, we will start our Q&A session. So thank you again for joining us. Okay, everyone, I would like to introduce to you Harris County Clerk Christopher G. Hollins. Clerk Hollins is a fifth-generation Texan. His father, George, served for 34 years in the Houston Police Department, and his mother, Christy, managed a career as a secretary while raising Chris, his two sisters, and more than 20 young foster children. After graduating from Hightower High School in Missouri City, Clerk Hollins went on to earn a Bachelor of Arts with Phi Beta Kappa honors from Morehouse College. He also completed a joint program with Yale Law School and Harvard Business School, earning both his Juris Doctor and his Master of Business Administration degrees. Clerk Hollins is admitted to the State Bar of Texas and federal courts for the Southern District of Texas. He has spent many years in both the private and public sectors, including service with the White House Office of Presidential Personnel during the first year of the Obama administration. In June, the Harris County Commissioners selected him to complete the unexpired county clerk term after the resignation of Dr. Diane Troutman. Clerk Hollins resides in the University Oaks community with his wife Morgan and their daughter Vivian, so far, right? And the Hollins family attends Wheeler Avenue Baptist Church in Houston's 3rd Ward, our beloved 3rd Ward. So I give to you this evening, Clerk Christopher Hollins.
Well, thank you so much for that warm introduction, Carla. Two things that were missing from that bio. One is that we've recently welcomed a son to our family, George Thomas of Shaw Hollins. And so he's going on 3 months now. He reaches 3 months this week. And then the second thing is that I'm a 2005 initiate of Psi chapter of the Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. And so root to the bros and of course. And so I'm so glad to be here with you all this evening. I know you have a lot of questions. I also know that all of you are engaged and educated. And so some of the basics that we might cover are things that you already know. But just to get us started, I want to make sure that you all know that my job as Harris County Clerk is to protect the right to vote for every eligible voter in Harris County, point blank, period. And during the time of COVID-19, it is the duty of the Harris County Clerk's Office to ensure that you can cast your vote safely, but also that you can do so conveniently and with the peace of mind that your votes are going to be counted. And that's why we are making it such that you have more days to vote, more ways to vote, more places to vote than ever before, and more hours to vote. Not only do we have the longest early voting period in the history of the state of Texas, we're offering drive-through voting for any Harris County voter at 10 of our locations for the first time in the history of the state of Texas. We're having 120 early voting locations, which is triple the number of locations that we had here in Harris County in 2016, and again is the most early voting locations in any jurisdiction in the history of Texas. You might be sensing a theme here. We are extending our hours on 3 days during early voting from October 27th to the 29th. We're going to keep all the polls open until 10 p.m. And on one night, October 29th, pardon me, that last night of early voting, 7 of our polls will not close at all. They will remain open for 24 hours. And that's to make sure that anybody in Harris County, despite your circumstances, your work circumstances, your personal circumstances, your family circumstances, whether or not you're taking care of kids, whether or not you're stocking shelves at a grocery store that are so critical right now, whether or not you're in the Texas Medical Center saving lives, or working a shift out at the Port of Houston, that on one day, one night, you can have the opportunity to vote in a way that is convenient for you and for your family. And so we're proud that despite all of the efforts to suppress votes here in Texas, that this is going to be, bar none, the most accessible election in the history of Texas, right here in Harris County. And I'm proud to be leading that effort. I'm proud to have, as my chief deputy, Tanisha Hudspeth, your next county clerk, and a member of this lovely sorority. I'm proud that I'm working alongside more than 300 full-time committed public servants and nearly 12,000 volunteers during this time. We're going to work hand in hand to make sure that you have a safe, a secure, an accessible, a fair, and an efficient election. And so we are working tirelessly to do that. You may have seen things that we're fighting in the courts to ensure that that you ultimately are able to exercise your constitutional right to vote. We're not going to let anybody get in the way of that. But if there's anything that you can take from these most recent efforts, from outside forces to try and suppress votes, to try and disenfranchise folks here in Harris County, it's that your vote is important. If your vote were not critical, they would not waste their time trying to take it away from you. Texas is now the biggest battleground state in the country. We can sway the direction of this nation. And from the top of the ballot all the way down to the ballot, because you know, the further you go down that ballot, the closer you get to our doorstep. We need to all be voting the entire ballot. We need to be making sure that our friends, our family, our neighbors have plans to vote. And we need to make sure that they know the information that they need to know in order to cast their vote. And so before I stop, I just want to mention a couple of key websites that you all should be aware of. The first one, harrisvotes.com/vote by mail. Here in Texas, we are one of the 5 states in the country that is not voter friendly, that has not opened up so that every single resident can vote by mail if they would like to for safety reasons during COVID-19. In Texas, you have to be eligible, which means you either have to be 65 years of age or older. You have to be traveling outside of the county. You have to be in jail, or you have to have a physical condition that creates a likelihood of injury to your health if you vote in person. And if you're sick or if you're pregnant, then you automatically qualify. Outside of those, of course, there's a traditional understanding of the term disability. But during the time of COVID-19, the Texas Supreme Court has made clear that you can take COVID-19 into account in your health decision, but it cannot be the only factor. So if you deem yourself perfectly healthy, but simply have a concern with COVID-19, then that's not going to cut it. But there are numerous physical conditions, many that plague our community in particular, that the CDC has laid out as comorbidities to COVID-19. And those and more are things that you can consider. From breathing conditions like asthma, bronchitis, and others, to heart conditions, to diabetes, to hypertension, to obesity, to smoking. These are all things that, as you know, disproportionately affect the Black community that many of us carry with us. And we can consider those conditions and any other conditions that we might have, including, immunocompromisation and so forth, in our decision for ourselves of if we're eligible to vote by mail, because it is your decision to make. It's not mine, it's not the governor's, It's not the Attorney General's. It is each voter's individual decision to decide if she is eligible to vote by mail. And so if you want to learn more, if you want to apply right now, you can go to harrisvotes.com/vote-by-mail to access that application. harrisvotes.com/sample. Again, we need to be making a plan to vote. And so you can go to harrisvotes.com/sample to see your personalized sample ballot. That website is up now. You can print your sample ballot. You can take that with you to the polls. You can also take written notes to the polls or voter guides to the polls. You cannot access your electronic device when you're at the voting booth. And so if you want to take a reference with you in person, then you should go ahead and print that out to take it with you. harrisvotes.com/locations. So how do you find your location? At harrisvotes.com/location, you can type in your address or the address of your place of business or your child's school, etc. And it will show you not only the numerous locations that are in your area, but it will also show you the approximate wait times at those locations. So you can choose the best place to go and vote that's going to be convenient for you, where you can get in and out, cast your ballot, and get back to your family. And then finally, one thing I forgot to mention as it relates to vote by mail. If you choose to vote by mail, you can use harrisvotes.com/tracking to locate and track your mail ballot for the entirety of the process. You can see that we received your application, see where your application is in the approval process, see that we mailed you your mail ballot, and ultimately see that we received that mail ballot back in our processing and counting that vote. And so I want to make sure that you're aware of that. Again, despite everything that we see, we know that your vote is your voice. And 2020 is a time when we all need to be expressing ourselves. We all need to be making our voices heard. And we need to be voting like our lives depend on it, because they do. And the lives of our children depend on it. So I urge you, I implore you, vote, and vote from the top of the bottom all the way to the bottom of the ballot. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions you might have.
Okay, Clerk Hollins, while people are getting their questions together, I do have one question that came in through the chat, and several actually, but one that I want to ask right now. And we have an audience member who says that they applied to work the polls. What can they do to see whether or not they were chosen? Is there a confirmation process? And then are volunteers still needed?
Thank you. And thank you to everyone who has volunteered, signed up, reached out, either as an official election worker through my office, or just to volunteer with any number of community organizations who are going to be supporting during this time, because this democratic effort takes all of us. But if you applied to be an election worker, we have 11,000 plus spots, but we had over 30,000 applications come in. And just to share with you how that process works, the election judges, the folks who are, the leads at every voting center, those election judges are appointed by the major political parties, the Republicans and the Democrats. From there, those election judges select their clerks from the pool that we provide to them. And so it would behoove you, if you haven't been alerted that you have been chosen as an election worker yet, to reach out directly to the political parties, whichever one you are a part of, to doubly express your interest. Let them know what part of town that you live in and where you're open to working in order to be appointed. If those appointments are not fully made by a certain time frame, then my office has the ability to step in and directly make those appointments. And we will actively do that, because of course we want to be fully staffed. And we also will have, reserve staff. We have opportunities here, in our call center, our processing of mail ballots. And so we continue to be hiring, but frankly, the number of applications coming in is at a much higher clip than our need, which is a blessing for us. Everyone, if you had applied by the middle of last week, should have received a status update, just letting you know we haven't forgot about you. We know that you're there. But again, the team is sifting through thousands of applications and forwarding those over to the political parties to make those decisions.
Thank you. Clerk Hollins, are the hours for early voting the same on every day, or is Sunday different?
Sunday is different. And so our hours are longer than they've ever been. From Monday to Saturday, they're 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And on Sundays, they open at noon, but remain open until 7 p.m. And then, as I mentioned a moment ago, Carla, in the last week of early voting, on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, every single location will remain open until 10 p.m. And on that Thursday, 7 locations will remain open overnight for that 24-hour period.
Okay. Clerk Hollins, can you speak to the importance of making sure that the signature on your ballot matches so that, you know, people can be informed or armed with what is going to ensure that their ballot counts, especially when it comes to the signature? And then we have a B question on that. What if I can't legibly write my signature now? What is the option available to me?
Both great questions. And again, we live in a world where things like this, technicalities, have been used to throw people's votes out in the past. We now have an early voting ballot board that is led by progressive leadership, whose goal is to count every vote. But the security is still important. So we are going to compare the signature on your ballot to the signature on your application, to previous signatures that we have from you, to ensure that this signature is coming from you. And so I'm going to give you 2 pieces of advice. One is to try and use the same signature on your application and your ballot, and try to make sure that those signatures match signatures that you've used in the past. We have, you know, as many as 4 to 6 signatures of yours in our files to compare to from the past. And if we're able to match to any of those, then you should be fine. But don't go and change your signature right at this moment. This is not the time to do that. If you have, you know, an injury of some sort, or, you know, if you've grown older, you have a condition that has made writing challenging, that's a normal process, and we understand. What I need you to do is, when you're applying to vote by mail, if you haven't yet, make sure that you share your phone number with us, because in the event that there's any issue related to the ballot, with signatures being one of those, we will call you directly to ask you, you know, Carla, is this you who sent this ballot in? And can you confirm X, Y, and Z information? And if we're able to do that, then we can go ahead and approve your ballot. But there are also processes by which an assistant or a witness can help you. And that information, that's clearly marked out on both the application and the ballot, that says if you use an assistant, you use a witness, here are those instructions. The witness has to sign. If possible, the voter still needs to make a mark, and the witness or the assistant attest to that. But, you know, on my application, if you go to harrisvotes.com/vote by mail, you'll see those instructions for the assistant and the witness in red ink. You cannot miss it. And on the ballot, that follows, you know, state of Texas protocols, and is also relatively straightforward. So just look out for that assistant or that witness box and follow those instructions.
Okay. I have a couple of more questions, and then I think we have some participants who have their hands raised to ask questions as well. One of the questions that came up in the earlier portion of our meeting is about the metro rail system and bus system, and will people be allowed to ride the rail and the bus for free in order to go and cast their votes in return? Do you have any information on that?
So Metro has made it clear that on election day, those who are voting can use the system for free. I have not yet heard, and we have a call with them coming up, about those who are going to drop off their mail ballots. But I would estimate that Metro would do the right thing there. They have been on the forefront of support in this regard. And so I want to be able to tell you that, yes, those who are going to vote can ride Metro for free.
Okay. And then I have, what is the current status of litigation concerning voting that's currently moving through the court system? And will any of this late shenanigan that we're seeing impact our ability to vote in the upcoming election?
Yeah, and so, I mean, the first thing I have to ask is which litigation, because there's so much going on right now. But I'll give you a quick update. Uh, the primary litigation related to us right now is that we want to send every voter in Harris County an application to vote by mail, along with educational materials that educate you, inform you of your rights, and let you know and make you the decision for yourself if you're eligible to vote by mail. That has been challenged in the courts. We won at the district court level. We won again at the Court of Appeals level. And we had a hearing last week with the Texas Supreme Court and are waiting to hear back. And so I would have hoped to hear by now, frankly, but not right at this moment. We're waiting. Second litigation, most recent, we had 12 drop-off points for mail ballots across Harris County for the convenience of our seniors and voters with disabilities. The governor came out with a proclamation last week saying that we could only have a single drop-off location. Although, Harris County is larger than the state of Rhode Island and has more people in it than the state of Colorado. But, we are challenging that in court. We believe that that proclamation was an abuse of the governor's disaster powers. You should not be able to use disaster powers to make conditions less safe for your constituents. And so we're fighting that in the courts as well. And then the last one that I think has been out there is about straight ticket voting. A judge ruled very recently that we should have straight ticket voting, but that was immediately stayed by an appeals court, and I don't see anything changing there because we're so close to the election and because so many ballots have already gone out. And so those are the big three cases that I'm familiar with at the moment. I wouldn't be surprised if there are a couple more.
Well, there is one more that I'm aware of, and I'm not sure what happens with it, but I know that there's an organization of people in our area and across the state who are attempting to get the governor to go back to only 1 week of early voting. Have you heard anything on that one?
Yes, and I was actually named in that lawsuit too. And so I told you, I have to ask you which one. I find it very unlikely. We are 8 days out from the beginning of early voting here. And while, the governor has clearly taken steps just in the last week to suppress votes, I do not believe that he is going to go back on this early voting period. And so I am fairly confident, pretty firmly confident, that 8 days from today on October 13th, we will begin early voting here in Harris County.
Thank you. And with that, we're going to open the floor because I know there are several people with their hands raised. So Dr. Cushenberry, if you can just let me know who we have ready to ask the clerk a question.
We have no hands raised at this time. Oh, I'm sorry, we just got one. Ms. Marva, can you unmute your mic?
Hi, Chris. The question came up earlier. Okay. The host has muted me. Okay.
No, we hear you.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? The question came up earlier about Harris County and the mail-in ballot if a person changes their mind. And I was on a Zoom call with you last night, and my understanding is that if you receive your mail-in ballot and you change your mind, you can bring it to a polling place and turn it into a judge and say, I want to cancel this, as long as you have not opened the ballot. So we need a clearance on that. Can the ballot be opened or it needs not to be opened?
It doesn't matter if it's open or not. You can come and surrender that ballot and cast your vote in person. Now you probably remember, Ms. Marva, that I said I urge you to go ahead and use that mail ballot for its purpose.
Right.
Voting by mail is the safest and most convenient way to vote, not only for you to not expose yourself during this time, and during the time of no straight ticket voting, to vote that long Harris County ballot, to be able to do that from your dinner table or from your sofa is much more convenient than going out to a voting center. But it's also more safe and more convenient for everyone else in Harris County. That's one less person who's to be in line in front of them during this record turnout election, and one less person who they could be exposed to during the time of this deadly virus. But, if you're intent on going to cast your ballot in person, you can bring your ballot and surrender that and go ahead and vote in person. And even if you, lost your ballot, or you say you never received it, there's a process for you to vote provisionally. And as long as that mail ballot never gets returned to us voted, then that provisional ballot will certainly be counted.
Okay, and the other thing was we understand that the mail system is kind of broken right now. So there was a question that someone asked about if she could gather up mail-in ballots from different people who are handicapped. And my understanding is you can put it in a larger envelope and mail it by UPS and FedEx to your office.
So I want to be very careful here.
Okay.
If two people live in the same household, then they could put, two mail ballots that are fully completed, fully sealed and signed into, say, a larger envelope or a UPS package or something like that. For unrelated people, you should absolutely not do that.
Okay.
You need to put that, you provide those folks with stamps. And in fact, if they put their mail ballot in the mail with no stamp, the Postal Service will deliver that to us, and we will pay your bill for you. But you should not be handling other people's mail ballots. And if you come in to turn in mail ballots at our headquarters, you can only bring your own, and you must have a photo ID when you bring it. So we will not accept someone else's mail ballot, if that person is not present in the county.
Thank you so much.
I have another question, Clerk Hollins. One of the viewers says that she tracked her ballot and that it shows that it was sent out on September 28th. And she wonders how long should she wait before she worries about whether or not she's going to receive her ballot.
Also a great question, and we've received quite a few calls in that regard. I would say give it just a couple of more days. And if we get to Thursday or Friday of this week and you still haven't seen that mail ballot, then please give us a call or email us at BBM, stands for vote by mail, bbm@harrisvotes.com. But yeah, my wife's mail ballot has not been received at our house yet. But I'm not concerned at this moment. But if we get to a few more days, then we're going to check on that.
Okay. Clerk Hollins, are there any restrictions to using the drive-in voting option?
None whatsoever. Any voter in Harris County can use drive-through voting. And in fact, if multiple voters come in one vehicle, then they can all use drive-through voting. Now, I wouldn't highly recommend that because y'all would have to wait for each other to vote, and that could be quite a process. And so you might want to walk indoors in that situation. Every drive-through voting site will be attached to a walk-in site, so you can have the choice of which one you want to go to. But there are no restrictions whatsoever. And you can take the time, listen to your radio, sit in your air conditioning, talk to friends on the phone while you're waiting, and then ultimately, of course, pull in to your booth and cast your vote.
I have another question that's really unique. One viewer says that if they register to vote tonight by midnight, can they also at that time submit an application for a ballot by mail?
So there's a little bit of a timing issue because when we get that application to vote by mail, we're going to check to see if you're on the voter rolls. And if the voter registrar, which is not in my office, if the voter registrar hasn't put you in the system yet, then that's going to get flagged and ultimately rejected. And so I wouldn't advise that. I would give it a few days, check on the tax assessor's office, which is the voter registrar, at hctax.net, HC as in Harris County, tax.net. Confirm that you're registered and then apply over to vote by mail so that you don't get caught in that situation.
And there is still time because the last day that a mail-in application, a ballot application can be received in the clerk's office is still all the way out until October 23rd.
23rd, that's correct. And so we have to receive it by the 23rd. The postmark The postmark will save you on voter registration, but the postmark will not save you on voting by mail. And so we need that by the 23rd. But I know that all of you are registered already, and so you can go ahead to vote by mail and apply today.
And with that, we have a couple more hands raised.
Sarah Tina Marie Jones Green, please unmute your mic.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Hello, Chris, how are you? I wanted to ask the question, would voters be permitted into the poll location if they have on a t-shirt with a candidate's information and or a slogan such as Black Lives Matter or anything like that? Would they be permitted into the poll location?
That's a great question. So electioneering is not allowed within a 100-foot space around the voting center. And that includes materials supporting a candidate or a party. Now, we know that there are going to be folks who don't know that rule, who are excited to support their candidate, and they're going to come and wear, their Kamala Harris shirt. And so we're aware that that's a situation, and we will kindly and understandingly share that information with the voter, and they'll have the opportunity to go turn the shirt inside out or put a jacket on over it or something of that nature so that they can come in to cast their ballots. Now, Black Lives Matter is not a candidate. It's not a political party. That is a nonpartisan statement. And so clothing like that, clothing that have other political statements of that nature are very much allowed. Again, this is about having your voices heard. So we will not silence that. However, we also have to respect the voters' decision to make their own choices at the polls. So that's why candidate shirts and party shirts and that sort of thing are not allowed within 100 feet of the polling site.
We have some more hands raised.
Yes, Judge Deidre Davis, please unmute your mic.
Thank you. Hello, our wonderful county clerk who is like a savior to us. I'm so excited that you are with us today. And my question is as follows. We know that you did a spectacular job and got 12 locations for drop off for the mail-in ballot. We know that the governor has slashed that. The one location is NRG, am I correct? Because you made a statement about if you come to our office, but is that one location NRG?
That's correct, Judge. NRG Arena is our official elections headquarters. And while we're going through this court battle, that is our single drop-off site for mail ballots.
Outstanding. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge.
A couple more hands up, Dr. Cushenberry.
Mm-hmm. Laverne Richards, please unmute your mic.
Good evening, and thank you, County Clerk Hollins, for this wonderful opportunity. We certainly appreciate you. Good evening, sorors and others listening. I'm asking about the drop-off at NRG. What is the protocol that we should expect when we drop off our ballots?
Yeah, so you will drive in off of Kirby. There's also a pedestrian entrance from the Metro Rail off of Fannin, but those who come in vehicles will be coming in off of Kirby. You simply follow the path that will lead you to a tent that we have set up that is a drive-through drop-off site. So it's a very straightforward situation. You pull up when it's your turn, you hand them that ballot, they check your ID, they have you sign for it, and then you'll watch them put that into a lockbox. And every evening, then that lockbox is brought right indoors. It's placed into a locked cage, and that locked cage is under 24-hour surveillance, as well as being surveilled by an in-person Harris County constable. And so that's a very secure process, but the drop-off portion is straightforward and easy for you.
So we do not need to get out of our cars?
No, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
Dr. Cushenberry.
Sarah Linda Calloway, please unmute your mic.
Thank you. Clerk Chris, I want to confirm that the drive-through will be available for early voting, or is it just on the day of the regular vote day?
All of the above, beginning on October 13th, continuing through October 30th, and of course on Election Day, November 3rd. All 10 of those early voting sites will remain open the same hours as every other voting center across Harris County.
Dr. Cushenberry. We can't hear you, Dr. Cushenberry.
So I need to unmute my mic.
Yes.
Sarah Freddie Wright, please unmute your mic.
Good evening, Clerk Chris Hollins. How are you?
I'm doing well, Ms. Wright. How are you?
I'm doing well. This is my question. Since we have the different precincts and they have the buses, would it be feasible for them to dispense their buses to the neighborhoods to pick up the senior citizens? And how would they be contacted if that is an option?
So when you say precincts, I believe you're referring to the Harris County Commissioners.
Yes.
That would be an option for them. I'm also aware, though, that in the time of COVID-19, you know, there are definitely some safety challenges in regard to busing and so the polls and efforts like that. So I'm unfamiliar with anything that Commissioner Ellis or any of the other commissioners are doing right now. Overall, I would say that it is feasible, but you know, I think during this time we should certainly be looking out for our seniors, especially those who are family members of ours or close family friends, to make sure and just check on them one by one to ensure that they have an option, but also to ensure that they apply to vote by mail, because I mean they are eligible, and that is the safest way for them to cast their ballot.
Have two more hands raised, Dr. Cushenberry.
Sarah Kimberly Joseph, please unmute your mic.
Okay, thank you. You mentioned the drop-off spot at NRG, and you gave the dates, but what are the times that it's open?
So this week, it will remain open during regular business hours, which are 8 a.m. to 4:30. But beginning on Tuesday, the 13th, it will remain open for the exact same time as the polls are open. So 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Every day, except for Sundays when it will open at noon. And then it will also maintain those late night hours when the polls are open late.
Thank you.
Sarah Trina Francis, please unmute your mic.
Hi, this is Trina Francis. County Clerk Chris, I have a question. I am a part of a movement by Felicia Thomas called See You at the Polls, where we are going to the different poll locations to supply like snacks and water and just anything to try to encourage people to stay in line and vote. My question is in the conversations in this group, a few times something has come up about regarding that there may be some people at the polling sites that may be trying to suppress the votes by maybe intimidating voters. Have you heard anything like that?
Well, I've certainly heard of these efforts. I think we saw, if we were watching the news a couple of weeks ago in Virginia, where there were folks who were blocking the entrance to a voting center. And so we're on very high alert about that. We don't want to lend unnecessary credence to those things because we don't want to operate in the spirit of fear, but we do operate in the spirit of preparation. And we are working hand in hand with the county attorney's office, the district attorney's office in case criminal charges are required, and various law enforcement agencies to make sure that we have a quick and appropriate response to intentional efforts at voter intimidation and coercion. We also, for the first time in history, are going to have a county clerk employee who is stationed at every single voting center for this specific purpose, to be paying attention, being eyes and ears, and ensuring a quick and appropriate response whenever we do see anything that's geared toward voter suppression.
Okay, we have one final question for the clerk because he has another obligation, so we don't want to monopolize all of his time. So our final question, I do see a hand raised, Dr. Cushenberry.
She put her hand down.
Okay, she heard what I was saying, but I do have one question that comes in the chat, and it says, on the website, it says that mail-in ballots will be processed if the $1.10 stamps are not affixed. This may be an option for those in financial constraints during COVID. Could you please verify that?
Absolutely. And so if you can't afford a stamp, or frankly, if you just haven't been able to get to the post office to get a stamp, if you drop that in the mail, that mail ballot will be delivered to us, and my office will foot the bill and count your ballot. We are not going to let 55 cents or even $1.10 or whatever it is get in the way of your voice being heard this November at the polls. And so do not hesitate to put that mail ballot in the mail. I'm sitting here in NRG right now. Just today I saw numerous ballots that had come back with insufficient postage. They got to us, and we're going to process those ballots and we're going to count those ballots. And so, with that, I again want to thank you all for your work, for your engagement, for you being in this fight along with us to ensure the continuation of democracy. It is not a perfect democracy, but it is something that requires all of us to hold it together. And so that is especially necessary right now when our democracy is under attack. And so we need you to be voting again, as if our lives depend on it and if our futures depend on it. And so, thank you all so much. It's great to see all of you, and I look forward to seeing you at the polls.
Don't hang up yet, because we want our president to give you her final greetings. So, Sergeant.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, County Clerk Hollins, for joining us tonight. Thank you for this very informative session. And to everyone who has joined us, thank you so very much. The information that you have provided us tonight has been invaluable, and we will certainly share it and go out and vote. So thank you so much for your time, and congratulations on the new addition to your family. Thank you so much.
And I did receive the email, so I knew the time was near, and then I didn't receive another one, so I knew, but I didn't want to overstep and say, oh yes, they have a new baby, because I wasn't sure, but I did receive that notice that it was coming. So, but thank you so much, Clerk Hollins. We appreciate your spending your evening with us.
Hold on, before I go, I'm going to show y'all a picture real quick so y'all can see it.
Okay.
Yeah, just give me 1 second to find it. I can't not brag about my son.
Right.
Oh, of course.
Well, you have to have one of your son and your daughter, right?
Of course. I mean, I have millions of my daughter, but he's a newborn, so he gets a special little spot here. Just give me 1 second. Here.
And 3 months old, yes?
He'll be 3 months old this week. Let's see if y'all can see that.
Oh, my goodness. I see those gold boots, y'all.
Oh, how precious.
We're getting them ready. All right, y'all. Y'all have a great one.
You picked the perfect picture to share with us.
Bye-bye. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. And so to everyone who's in the audience, we want to thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate your attention and your questions, and we hope that all of your questions were answered. If you check the chat, there was some information placed there for you. For instance, some of the websites that Clerk Hollins mentioned were added in, some of the hours of voting and things like that. So please check the chat. And with that, we will say good night to all of those who just joined us for the conversation with the clerk. I know that those members of the Social Action Committee are going to stay on for a brief meeting. So please, if you are, do not hang up. But all of the guests that we've invited, thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your evening. And remember, October 13th is next week. So it's time. It's go time. Thank you.
Sarah Fleming Jones, someone sent in the chat, if you could, all of that information that was placed in the chat, if you could put it together in one location so they can access it. And I copied and pasted it, so I'll send it to you.
Okay, I'll get it together and we can at least send it to the correspondent secretary. And if anyone needs that information who was a guest tonight and you have a connection to someone who is in our chapter, then they can share that information with you. So we will put it together. Thank you, Dr. Kitchenberry.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Good night.
Good night.
Okay, as our numbers drop off, Social Action Committee, y'all remember, stay on. Thank you very much.